talking about every relationship is an opportunity for growth. And so I do these YouTube lives every Saturdays at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And if you guys do find this video content of value, share with your friends. There's a little link below if you find this video content of value. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Now, my recap episode for today will be being a leader is not a decision. It's not a decision. Let me repeat that again. Being a leader is a decision, not a title. And the recap slide is on when you are a leader. So leaders do not know the answers to the questions, or at least all the answers to the questions. They know the best questions. They know how to ask questions, and these are great leaders. And the reason why you want, and this quoted by Mark Sanborn, the reason why you want to ask good quality questions is because the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions that you consistently ask yourself. So now you want to ask, if you're a leader, people need to know where you are going. Because if you don't, and you just go around in circles, that is not considered leading. That is not leading. You think you're leading, but they're just following you around in circles. It's like, well, where exactly are you going? Now, being able to communicate, a great leader understands the needs of what others are first. What's up, Greg? How are you doing, man? So, being able to communicate, that's what a great leader does. People have to trust you. You have to be trustworthy. And how do you earn that trust? By staying honest. And finally attending your presentation and podcast. Thank you, Greg. I hope you're doing well. Hope you've been doing well. So now, people have to trust you, so you have to be honest, and you have to have strong morals, because people aren't stupid. People aren't dumb, at least not for a very long period of time. And when you're going to, and where you're going, has to have value. Do they value where you're going? Do they see what you see? Is it going to make their lives better by following you? Because why would anyone want to go along with you if it doesn't have any type of value to them? And so one of the best predictors of being a good leader is conscientiousness. That's a personality trait. Because when you're conscientious, people that are conscientious, they keep their words. So you have to say what you mean and mean what you say. What's good, Tracy? You have to say what you mean and mean what you say. You got to be trustworthy. It's one of the great elements of being a great leader is being trustworthy. Now, if you think about it, you can also look at it in the lens of, well, there are harsh leaders and there are kind leaders. But as long as they know what they are doing and where they are going, most people would stay. Then most people will follow you. The problem, so another quote by Mark Sanborn is, the problem in this world isn't that having a title doesn't make you a leader. It's that not having a title should never keep you from leading. And I want to repeat that one more time. The problem in this world isn't that having a title doesn't make you a leader. It's that not having a title should never keep you from leading. Now, you don't need a permission to start leading. And what I mean by lead, you don't necessarily have to lead other people. You just have to be the one that leads your own life. And you don't need other people's approval before you start taking control over your own life. Everybody's a world changer in this world, if you think about it. But the major question is, what kind of change are you making? Or what changes are they making? Everybody makes a difference, but at the end of the day, what kind of difference? Did you build others up or did you break others down? Bottom line is there's nothing wrong with titles, but sometimes I do believe that titles are a little overrated. I do believe that sometimes. Now, to get into the meat of the subject, which is every relationship is an opportunity for growth, I want to start out a little bit more personal with you guys and what my personal experiences has taught me in the relationship. So the title of this slide will be what my relationships have taught me. And in the beginning, I was a teenager, like I didn't know anything. So obviously I just went with whatever I thought I knew. And so by acting needy, I was a little insecure. It really got me nowhere. It really got me nowhere. Because that's what I saw in television. That's also what I saw so a lot of it was through TV. And then, as you're growing up, you start seeing other people, how they treat other people like that. And it's like, well, you learn to try to adapt to their type of situation. It's like, oh, I could do this, I could say this, or you might be able to ask for some advice. But in the beginning, all it was I was needy, I was insecure. It really got me nowhere in my life, in my relationships. I was always super available, and I made her the center of my life. And that was one of the biggest mistakes. And it's not to say that she is not important to me. That's not what I'm saying. But it is also important to make sure that she is not the only thing and she is not the center of your life. Because what really showed was when she was the center of my life, what it just really made her think about was, most importantly, I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a mission. I didn't have a drive to become someone. I didn't know who I wanted to be or what I wanted to become. I lacked a purpose. And so because of that, I never really worked towards anything that felt like it was worth working towards. And, as I got older, I just, I got a job like anybody else. Why? Because, I want to make a little bit of money for myself, and I want to be able to go out and eat without worrying about things. Like, hey, when you're broke and you don't have any money and going out to eat, you're going to look at the menu a little bit differently. You know what I mean? And so I was like, all right, I'm following along and I get it. But something is still missing. Why aren't my relationships getting any better? So, like I said, I didn't really know what I wanted to do on this earth. Really, I really didn't. I lacked purpose. And it took me a very long time and a big heartbreak to get me into this position that I am today, where in the beginning I was lost. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do or become. And because of this heartbreak, it kind of led me down this path to start learning about not only about relationships. My coach, Coach Corey Wayne, he doesn't just teach about relationships. He teaches you on how to become the best version of yourself. And I didn't know what I was getting into when I was learning this, because, it was a heartbreak. All I wanted to learn about was, damn, I just need to get better at relationships. But it's not about getting better at relationships with other people. What he taught me was it's about getting a better relationship with myself. It's about getting into a better relationship with myself. And by respecting myself and respecting my time and having a purpose and having a drive, going for what I want without being apologetic about it. And in turn, what all that happened was, because in the beginning I was insecure, I was needy, it bled out into my relationships to her, because I didn't have anything for myself and you can't give what you don't have. So I gave my time away as if it was not important. I lacked direction. So she didn't really know how to follow me. She didn't, because it's like I wasn't a leader. Going around in circles was not leading. And then also, on top of that, I didn't vet properly. I didn't vet my dating prospects properly. I had poor judgment. I just used to think, oh my God, she's so hot. Or she has a nice body. blah 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 blah. And that's, you hear most guys talk about that, and most men are visual creatures. And so I didn't deny that part. I was like, okay. But one thing I failed to realize was, okay, although she has a nice face, nice body, whatever it may be, I never asked that one question like, well, what is her character like? What is her character? And I remember what Matthew Hussey said was, we as humans, we tend to overvalue chemistry but undervalue character. And while chemistry is great and it's important to have in a relationship, you also have to understand that having true character is what's going to make the relationship sustainable rather than just being attainable. So I used to put up with bullshit. Oh, she's hot, so I guess gotta deal with it a little bit more. Yada yada yada, right? Which kind of like I said, because I didn't value myself, it kind of bled on to other areas of my life. Which, if other people saw me with her, they would validate me because they're like, "Oh, Mitchell got a hot girlfriend." Kind of like what you would call a trophy wife, right? And it's like, that was a completely wrong approach. Because happiness then came from other people's validation. After a while, none of that really truly mattered. Really, none of that truly mattered. And then, people have their own characters. And at one point, I was young. I dated someone that was a cheater, someone that lied a lot, that was cheating, and someone who thought that talking to another person, right, entertaining another person, thought it was a good idea, especially when we were in a monogamous relationship, and she thought it was okay. And so it kind of just started getting into this whole, I started getting upset. I started getting bitter about women. I'd be like, all women are like this and this, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I really, truly believe that. And then, of course, as I was complaining about it, it made me feel a little bit better about myself, because now I'm protecting myself. I'm like, I'm not going to date, blah, 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 etc. And what I failed to realize was I didn't take much personal responsibilities for my own actions. I didn't do that. And I didn't ask quality questions to myself. Like, what were some of the red flags that are overlooked because she was hot or because she had whatever, right? Physical appearance. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? So, and because of what I didn't know and I didn't learn that, it haunted me. And it wasn't until, like I said, it was like a really, really big heartbreak that made me kind of fall into this kind of what you would call a rabbit hole, right? This rabbit hole of learning, becoming that person, being the person, becoming the person that you want to attract. And so little by little, it kind of just started like guiding me. Love is blind. We don't see the whole picture until it's too late. And Greg, I could see how love blinds some people, but it's also very important to not just use that and follow that, like, oh, love is blind, and because you love somebody, you would let them overstep certain boundaries and things like that. It's like, it's also important not to lose yourself. And so I think that's why it's so important. Hello. I think that's why it's so important to always talk about, where am I? Who am I? And not lose yourself in a relationship, because that's one of the most important things that you could have as a person, because you got in there as an individual, but you don't want to lose that. I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese, but I think you said Japonya, so it says Japanese person. I'm not Japanese. But anyways, but many whom have fallen into despair after a broken heart have stated that this way too often. And I think the term or the phrase "love is blind" makes you feel. Oh, you say you speak Japanese. How are you? I'm good. I'm doing well. Thank you for coming in here. My name is Mitchell, and I do relationship advice. But yeah, back to what you said, Greg or Onyx. Broken heart have stated this way too often. It's like, to me, that's a cope. That's like a coping mechanism. It's like, it's not my fault. Love is blind. I loved her way too much, and I'm gonna continue loving. It's like, no, that's not the way you want to live life. At least that's not the way I want to live my life, because I want to become better at it. I want to learn from this mistake that I've made. Sometimes I feel like this. He is controlling me. I broke up with him, but he still messages me. And I said this plenty of time. I don't know how to address you, but because your words are in Japanese. But rejection breeds obsession. Because you were the one that broke up with him, Miyu. Hi, Miyu. How are you doing? Because rejection breeds obsession. And because you were the one that unilaterally chose to break up with him, and he is now obsessed, and so he wants to get you back, because that was not his idea, that was not his choice. You made that decision, not him. And so, when a lot of people ask me like, oh, who broke up with who? Oh, it was mutual. It's like, no, usually someone decides that they're gonna break up. So anyways, moving on to my second slide, which is, I realized that everything I can control was my choice. So the person I was around was my choice. The people around me, that's my choice. The person that I was becoming was my choice. Who did I want to become? The anger that I couldn't control before, I had absolutely all control over that. I just chose not to. So I was easily bothered. I was easily perturbed. He's still reminding me every day that I was not good enough. It's okay. You could always bottom line someone's actions. If he's saying that he's not good or you're not good enough, then why is he constantly contacting you? You could always bottom line someone's actions, right? So if I'd be like, hey, I don't need you in my life, but I'm always contacting you and blowing up your phone, well, guess what? So, what's up, cat? I see you in here all quiet. So the anger I couldn't control, like it was all me. I was explosive. I was argumentative. I didn't listen. I thought I was listening, but I really wasn't. I was like, yeah, I'm listening. It's like, no, it wasn't. And I was just upset. And yeah, you could be upset about it. You could be bitter about it, but it doesn't really solve a problem. You know what I mean? It doesn't solve anything. I had a relationship before I was with him, but then he's like, you are a bitch or being in a relationship. God, I hate this feeling. That's definitely what the block, Melinda. What's up, Melinda? I had a relationship before I was with him, but he's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, and people tend to project, right? They project what they can't have, or you're a mirror to what they want you at the convenience. Yeah, you can always do better. You can always improve yourself. So like things like this, like I realized that I could control this, and I didn't know that. I did block him, but then he kept calling me from a different number. That's where a restraining order would come in. If you call me again, the police would get involved. So you need some sort of authority to be like, hey, leave me alone. Leave me alone. All right. So anyways, back to this. Yeah, that's harassment. So I was angry. I was upset. I was bitter. It was all me. I had full control. I just chose not to deal with it, because it was easier to do nothing than complain about it. And that's why if you look at like shows like Jerry Springer, and why is Jerry Springer so popular? Because if you think about it, if you're watching that TV show, you see maybe you're not in the best place right now. Maybe life sucks, but it didn't suck as much as what those people are dealing with. Oh my God, she just had a baby with another dude. And shows like Maury, the Maury show, it's like they're doing bad. The relationship's being teared apart. It's running down, and they're not happy. They're fighting constantly. It's like, and then you look at yourself and you be like, damn, at least mine's not that bad. Damn, that's drama. And it does well as entertainment, but it doesn't really do you any good to watch those type of things, because it's like, well, it gives you this idea of, wow, I'm doing something. It makes you feel better about you, but you're not doing anything for yourself other than feeling a little bit better, because you're like, their lives are worse than mine. So I don't really need to do anything to change myself because other people have it way worse. I have it pretty good. So my question to you is, how are you going to raise your standards, at least for yourself? How are you going to raise your standards? So, like I said, I have full control. Growth was ultimately up to me. Growth was ultimately up to me. You know, life is change, but growth is optional. Growth is optional. And I forgot who said this, but I thought it was really interesting. Small tweaks leads to great peaks. And, you know, you could write that down if you want, right? Small tweaks in your life leads to great peaks. Because this was not always here, okay? Like what I was thinking about, how to approach life, how to view life, and what stories that I constantly tell myself. Like, I feed myself with information that is not news. I don't feed myself with news that are, you know, people breaking apart, yada yada yada. Hold on, something's going on. So now moving to the next is, I didn't know that this journey I was taking was going to take me anywhere. I really didn't know that. I didn't know whether or not it was gonna lead me anywhere. I was at a desperate time, desperate place, where most people, when they come to me, they're not in the best place of their life. They're like, hey, I need some help, and how do I get out of this rut? And so I was like, growth was ultimately up to me, and I didn't know that this journey was gonna take me anywhere nice, or even if I knew that this journey was going to make me not bitter anymore. I was like, am I gonna stay bitter? I don't know that, but I was like, it doesn't feel good. I don't want to be in this position. How do I get out of that? So those are the questions that I was constantly asking myself. But it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't until I started listening to people before me, like my coach, Coach Corey Wayne. And I had this really, I feel like everybody is designed to be where they're at, exactly where they are. And you communicate with certain people exactly at that time and exactly at that place. Because when I was working at this gym, I had a coworker, and she was like, Mitchell, I think you're a great person, but I just feel like you lack certain things. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And she was like, I don't want you to take it into offense. I just think that there is a lot of potential that you're leaving on the table because you are this type of person. And so she was like, why didn't you read this book? And she gave me this book on How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And that was basically the book that has taught me how to become human, or how to be human and understand other people. And, you know, for some of you that may already know me, that it was an interesting way of how I got to read that book, because when she gave me that book, I lost that book. I didn't read it. I left it in my house. It was lost in my house. And she was like, so, you know, a couple months had gone by, and she was like, so Mitchell, how was that book? And I was like, I haven't read it. She was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. She was like, well, if you're not going to put it to use, give it back. And I was like, well, I lost it. I'll just buy you a new one. She was like, no, I want mine back. And so I went back home. She was pretty pissed off that I lost it. And after, you know, I found that book back, it took me a while. That was when I realized of how much, I was like, damn, what's so special about this book that she had to get this book back? And it was like, because it was highlighted, it was hers. I get it. And so I gave it back to her, but I read, you know, I opened the first page and I read a little bit. I was like, it's kind of interesting, but I had to give it back to her the next day. So I did. And so I decided that, you know, I was like, I'm going to buy this book. And so I did. I bought it and I started reading it. I read it once a year to remind myself. Um, Sometimes you gotta, we need reminding as much as we need educating, because life happens and you forget things, and it's important to read things over and over so it kind of gets ingrained in your mind. And so, yeah, so that was that book. And I didn't, like I said, I realized that I had total control over my life, and I get to choose the type of people that I want in my life. I get to choose where I want to spend my time. And I didn't know that. So little by little, it was starting to look like that narrow, dark cave. Little by little, as I was walking on that journey, if you will, I started seeing a little bit more hope, a little bit more light, and things that made sense along the way, like the process of it. I started having little light bulbs that pops up in my head. I was like, wow, I did that. Wow, I was insecure. Wow, I was upset. I was yelling. I was screaming. And, like, I didn't blame myself. I didn't beat myself up for, like, damn, I just lost the love of my life and all this. It was really like, it was really mainly, I made a mistake, learned to accept it. How can I not do this again? So that I could become better. I could finally give again. So, like I said, I didn't know about this journey. And so I started seeing their accomplishments. I also said, I had enough. I'm tired of this. I wanted to know more about relationships. So I took control over that and started learning. And learning that was one of the best things, especially during COVID. I learned a lot during COVID because I had a lot of time. And while I was learning more, I was enthusiastic about it. Like I said, like, you want to find something that keeps you up late at night, but it's like the first thing you think about in the morning. And so, yeah, I had enough. I had enough. But it doesn't mean that my journey was smooth sailing from there. What it was, even prior to that, was I started listening to some people that in the beginning that resonated with me a lot. But then I started to realize that these were people that was just upset about people, that had this anger towards women, that didn't like there's like, oh, all women are like this, modern women are like that, and it was not healthy. It wasn't healthy. But then, like I said, it's like you're starting, and the way you talk and the people that you listen to, if it starts to challenge you too much and it attacks your ego, everything everything that you believe once feels like it's gonna be shattered. And when I was listening to my Coach Corey Wayne, he taught me a lot. But in the beginning, it was a hard pill to swallow, because it's like, well, everything that I believed once before is now being shattered. These were really pissed off, upset men that didn't like women, and so they would treat them poorly, and thinking that it was okay. It's like, and then you see social media, you see videos on YouTube, and they get the same type of people, the same barrel of or the same pond of fish that they keep reeling into their show. And it's like they don't really get good women in there. Someone that's easygoing, easy to get along with, and that understands, that's not upset about women, that's upset about men. And so they're not constantly bombarding them. And also they ask questions like, oh, what do you bring to the table? What do you bring? It sounds like a challenge. It's not about asking. It's like, yes, I think it's important to bring something to the table, but it's not like, hey, what do you bring to the table? It seems like a threat. It's like, well, if you're gonna be asking me those type of questions, it's like, it's really not it's really not that important to be over here. It's like, well, I was just asking you questions. Why can't you answer a question? It's like, look, if you know what you bring to the table, it's important. But I do get it. There are certain people out there that thinks that it is what they bring to the table is just their beauty. It's like, no, you do have to bring a little bit more, right? So yeah, I was upset about women. I was angry. And then, like I said, it wasn't until I met Coach, or I didn't meet him physically, but I would love to. But just listening to him, I still listen to his podcasts, and he's taught me a lot. He's one of the persons that literally has taught me more than what I know now. And I also listen to other people like Jim Rohn because I really like his philosophy in life. I like Tony Robbins because he's one of the best. He's one of the best. He's very uplifting, and he's a great leader. He knows how to lead. He listens. He understands. And not a lot of people understands that. And so, yeah, I was like, it is possible for me to become better at relationships. It is possible for me to become a better communicator. Possible to become better at relationships. Trust that process. And so I had to learn to be patient. My next slide is your relationships helps you with self-acceptance. And, surprisingly enough, Dr. Phil, I was listening to Dr. Phil's, and he said, humans have a tendency to never invest more than what they can afford to lose. And so in reality, what it really means is that you really just can't give what you don't have. And if you don't have enough love for yourself, you will always feel like, well, that person that you're with right now, that's the one and only. This is it. There's no one else. The be all end all type of deal. And my personal goals in relationships is whenever I get into get into relationships, my goal is to always get into the long term. That's my goal. At least having a goal in mind, because I value that. I value someone that I could spend my time with. Now, whether or not it stays forever or not, that's really up to time to decide. But little by little, I can make adjustments. I could learn. I could become better myself, right? And seeing that, well, does our goal align? Does our values align? Like, those are important things that you want to ask yourself. So this is why it is very important to work on yourself before getting into a relationship. So good people that knows what's good for them, what they would do is, after a relationship ends, they're gonna take some time. Not only to take the time off, but they take the time to learn, to reflect, to understand what happened, how to become better. What mistakes did I do in a relationship that could have made it a little bit easier? That's super important. That's huge. And by asking yourself those quality questions, you could then lead into a happier life for yourself. And isn't that the goal for at least most people, is to live a life where it's less chaotic? Because like I said, life is chaotic as it is. You don't need other people to make it worse. And so many times I hear people in relationships where they're settling, they're unhappy, they tell them, like, I feel like I'm stuck. I'm like, why? They're like, well, we have this mortgage, we need double income in order to pay off certain things. We have kids, right? Like, I don't want the kids to. And it's like, well, really, you have to think about what is really the most important thing. Because from what I believe in, I believe that the most important person, let's just say I have kids. The most important person in that relationship is not the kids. And I'll explain why. The reason, it is not only yourself. Yes, you got to take care of yourself. but it's about the other person. Because if you think about it in this whole spectrum, you want to think about how do I want my kids to be raised? So in reality, the most important person is the kid. But before all that happens, you two have to have a solid relationship, because your kid is going to follow exactly what you're doing as a couple. If you tell your kids not to yell, but all you do is yell and scream at your wife, or she yells and scream at her husband, it's like he or she is going to pick that up. And yes, there are other influences as well, because especially if they go to school, they're going to start seeing their friends and how they act and how obnoxious they could be, especially being teenagers and all that, right? Or as they're growing up. Like, the most important thing is what you can do as a parent so that your kids could be raised properly. And so the importance of that is to, yes, maybe you're not in the best place right now, but let's talk about certain things. It's like, well, I know we might not be in the best place. I would love for us to be in the best place. How can I get you into a better place for yourself? Because ultimately, like I said, it's for your kids. And let's just say you're separate, you're no longer together. It is also very important to have a nice, cordial relationship where you're not disrespecting each other. You're not talking down about the other person. It's like, don't ever talk down about your ex-spouse or your ex-partner, because that's not doing anything for your kids. Let your kid will eventually grow up, and they can decide on whether or not they are a good person or not. And so that's why it's super important. It's like, yeah, the most important person is the person that you're with, especially if you have kids, because then you can have a good relationship. It doesn't mean you neglect your kid. They're just as important, but it's like, well, these are your offsprings. How are you going to lead them into a good life? So, like I said, that's why it's important to work on your yourself before getting into a relationship. Now, because you want to be able to trust yourself again, right? And I think this is very important, where the reason why you want to work on yourself before you get into a relationship is because most of the time, when a relationship ends, you start to think like, well, I can't trust this person. I can't trust this. Like, I was upset at women. I was like, oh, you can't trust women. All women are like this. It's like, no. It's like, well, I want to be at a place where I could trust myself to handle their flaws and their fallacies. While you're in this relationship, you should be working towards becoming the person you want to be. Like I said, it took me a while because I was very guarded. I had a lot of hate, or a lot of hate in my heart. I was upset. And it takes time and patience to be vulnerable enough to open up your heart again. It really does. It takes a lot of time to basically give love another chance, basically, and let someone in. And to know that you will be strong enough to be okay if they ever violate that trust or that love that you're offering or that you're giving to them. So it's knowing that, hey, you know what? It might not work out for this person, but no, I know what I could give. I know what I could offer. And this time I probably made another wrong choice, or I made a wrong choice. And so it's okay. I just need to learn. And it's being okay with the mistakes that you made and then moving forward with that. And so, like I said, for any reasons, for any breakup, you can always count on yourself to become better than the relationship that you once were in. Lastly, I have one more slide, and then that's it. So, patience and understanding. So, the most romantic phrase in any relationship is "I understand." Because in any relationship, you're going to run into some challenges no matter what. There's always going to be challenges. It is about learning how to be patient enough for yourself. Because so that you can be patient with your significant other. And if you think about it, being patient, it's really for you. and the other it's not really for the other person, but the other person that is the one that's going to be receiving your patience. It is the other person that's going to be receiving your patience and that type of understanding. So the beauty of it is you will only be around people that are more understanding now. That is the beauty of that, because when you become more patient and when you become more understanding, the beauty of that is you no longer tolerate people who aren't understanding and who aren't patient, because you know what's it like to work on that. And so the moment you can take a step back and understand that relationship isn't about you, and that you know that relationship is about us, that's the quicker you can be more at ease with your life. Where's the cat? She's inside right now. But being patient, being understanding, be patient with yourself and understand that it's gonna take time. I love what Tony Robbins said. He says most people overestimate what they could do in a year, but underestimate what they could do in 10. They underestimate what they could do in 10 years. And it's life is gonna move forward regardless. It's how you want to move forward. So life, growth is optional. Growth is optional. It's like, well, how do you want to live your life? Do you want to live a quality life, or do you technically just want to exist? And then now there's also little details that you have to kind of focus on too as well. It's like, well, if you are in a relationship, you have to understand what is your natural essence. You have to understand what is masculine and feminine energy. And by understanding that, then you get to understand the other person and what their needs are and how to meet their needs. Right? And everyone's a little bit different, but everybody has a baseline of what attracts them the most. And for me, I'm the leader in the relationship. I need to lead. So what does it mean? It means that there are certain things that I need to do as a leader in order to lead. I need to have a direction. I need to have a focus. I need to have things that I want to do with my life. And I also have to learn how to juggle that time where it's not just only that, because you have a relationship too. You have to focus on that. Like, there's certain things that you have to understand in relationships if you're going to be a part of that. People get into relationship thinking that, oh, I got her, I don't really need to do anything anymore. It's like, absolutely not. You actually have more responsibility. It's kind of like, you can't have a dog and just only want to play with it. Like, well, you got to feed it, you got to walk it, like, you got to take it to the vet sometimes. There's all these things that you have to do before and after. Never stop dating. Yes, never stop dating. I'll die on that. What do you mean by that, Kat? So, yeah, you also need to learn how to navigate through relationships. Understand how masculine and feminine energy works, how attraction works. Growth is about understanding a certain belief and following through with it. Now, would everybody agree with you? Most likely not. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own judgments. Yeah, if you stop dating, you aren't feeding the relationship. It's like if you want your kid to grow, you got to make sure you nurture it. You got to take care of it. You got to hug it. You got to hug your kid. Like, there's a lot of things. You got to spend time. So, yeah, like, not everybody will believe what you believe. Some people don't believe what I believe. They're like, oh, it's too much work. Oh, okay, well, you don't have to listen to it. Most men live life of quiet desperation anyways. It's like they go to work, come back home. It's an 8-hour shift. I get it. They're tired. They don't want to do anything. And they much rather sit and watch TV and Netflix because they're burnt out. It's like, well, it's not the fact that you're burnt out. You just don't have something that's emotionally compelling enough for you to want to do it. There are times where I come back home and I'm dead tired. I'm like, I can't do shit. I am tired. And so guess what I have to do? I have to take a nap because I'm getting old and I love naps. I used to make fun of my friend for taking naps, and now I take naps. Anyways, when after I take a nap, I get back up and I'm like, I need to work on learning. I need to work on understanding a little bit more about relationships. Why? Because I love it. It's what I do. Equal no emotional stimulation equals lack of intimacy. Yeah, and even when I was talking about my other life earlier, I was like, look, if you're doing everything right as a guy, you're leading a relationship, you're making her feel heard and understood, you're dating and courting her, you give her time and space to understand she's going to want you more than you want her, okay? She's going to want you more than you want her. But that's assuming that you take care of yourself, not only mentally, but physically and emotionally. Because men who are, like I said, jack in the boxes, that aren't emotionally controlling themselves, that aren't emotionally regulated, these are men that are deemed, or at least seen in the eyes of women, females, they're very insecure. Behind anger is always fear. So if you're always yelling and screaming and you're upset about certain things, you're literally digging yourself a deeper hole every single time. And your woman's going to test you. And the more you fail, the harder the test goes. So imagine this. Imagine you take a driving test, and the first test is gonna be super easy, but you failed that. That's a woman testing you, okay? Like a woman's testing you. You failed that first test. The second test is gonna be more difficult. And each test that you take is going to be more and more difficult until you start learning more. Until you start learning. And so the question is, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? Do you care enough? Most people, they don't care enough about a relationship. They really don't. It's, what you focus on expands. So if you really want a good, loving relationship and you want to nurture that type of relationship, there's certain things that you have to do. But if you don't really care about a relationship and you want to just live life and just have multiple partners, by all means, that's really up to you. That's your life. My thing is, it's like, don't waste other people's time. Don't get into a relationship and not give it your all. At least do your best and learn. So, and the same thing goes, it's like, look, if you go to the gym and you want to take care of yourself, you don't need to be like bodybuilding ready, right? You don't need to be like stage prepped in order to be accepted. It's like, I mean, if you want to do that, absolutely, then great, then do that. But it's like, you go in there, you take care of yourself, it's good for your health, it's a good environment, takes care of your body. Like, these are good things for you. And so it's like, well, are you doing things to take care of your body? Are you putting good things in your body as you're going to the gym and working on yourself? Like, those are very important things. And it's like, we can't fight biology, okay? Our biology. It's like, we lose muscle after the age of 30, because, Mitchell got his bachelor's degree in kinesiology, all right? After the age of 30, you start losing muscle. I think it's called sarcopenia, if I still remember correctly. It's a fancy word of you're going to lose muscle as you get older. After the age of 30, you lose about a pound of muscle a year. Roughly about a pound of muscle per year. And so you also start to lose like calcium. And so it's like there's certain things that you have to do to take care of your body. So you're hydrating yourself, like all these little things. If you don't give your best from the start, and your partner has throughout the relationship, then your partner will 100% give up by the time it's too late. And so most people come to me when it's too late. They're like, oh, I lost my love of my life. I was like, so my question is, what stopped you from putting your best foot forward in the beginning? Why is it now that you feel like you lost the love of your life? Well, I thought I was doing everything right. It's like, well, what you don't know, you don't know. What you don't know, you don't know. And something has happened. Something has happened. And it's like, well, I want her back. I want her back. And, you know, my thing is, I always tell her, I was like, the quickest way to get somebody else to change is to change yourself. And my same question is like, well, what really stopped you from putting your best foot forward in the beginning? Because now it's like, oh, now she's the love of your life. Like, it's what happened. And some people don't change. And it's like, and if she chose to not be with you, and that's her decision, like I said, it's a unilateral decision. It's her decision. I give this advice to everybody. Little too late, right? All you can do is, you know, give it some time, give it some space, because attraction grows through space. People need time away from you in order for her to feel more attracted towards you. I wonder what he's doing. I wonder if he's thinking about me. I wonder, you know, that's what women think. It's like, I wonder if he's thinking about me. I wonder if blah, 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 right? And so that's why, like, little things, like, oh, I got you a small gift as I was coming home from work because I thought about you. This, you know, I don't know, you like penguins, and I thought, you know, I stopped by this little store to pick up some snacks, and I got you a little penguin because you love penguins. And so, yeah, it's like little things like that. It's like she wants to feel like you're thinking about her. And just like little acts of kindness like that. Like, that's why they say it's always the little things. But it's also, are you giving her enough time and space? Time and space, that's important. And that's why I was like, relationship is complicated, but it also doesn't have to be that complicated. Yeah, reminders, yeah, makes you feel special, makes you feel heard and understood, makes you feel appreciated. It's like, yeah, I thought about you. It's a little tiny toy, and it's like, that will make you the happiest person. It's like, wow, this person thought about me. It's so cute, right? Little tiny penguin. It could be anything. Maybe it could be a little bee. I don't know, right? But like, you know, growth is optional. It's really ultimately up to you. And I heard people that made fun of me too. They were like, oh, Mitchell, like, I've been in way more relationships than you are. What makes you a relationship coach? I was like, how many have you been in? He's like, over 20, man. I was like, cool. Why has none of them worked? Oh, it's all them? All them? All? I had a friend that told me that, like, everybody, like, hates him at work, right? I was like, all right, so not a lot of people like you. Okay, what's going on? And then next job. I was like, yo, I don't think it's a job anymore, man. I think it's you, dog. Like, it's you. Like, you're the problem. Like, and then I started realizing, I was like, yeah, you could be a fucking dick sometimes. Like, I get it. And we're homies, and they're your coworkers. So yeah, absolutely, I think it's you. He didn't like that, and I was like, yeah, but you know what? Ain't nobody else gonna tell you that. So yeah, and so anyways, life has changed. Growth is optional, right? Growth is about understanding a certain belief and following through with it. Not everybody's gonna believe what you believe, and some would contest your belief, and I think that's important. I think it is important for other people to like challenge the type of beliefs that you have. That way you have room to grow. Because if no one could challenge you, then you're not really growing. Growth is a choice, absolutely. Yeah. Most people decide to choose a life of least resistance. And what's this other quote, which from Jim Rohn? He said, success is never crowded along the extra mile. Success is never crowded along the extra mile. It's because most people give up way before they think they could get there. And, you know, they compare themselves with so many other people. And I used to compare myself all the time with other people. I'm like, damn, how come they make so much more money than me? How come they have nicer cars? They already bought a house and I haven't. And it's like, well, do I really want to do all that? You know, I'm thinking about it now. I'm like, do I really want a house? Like, is really having a house that important? Or is having a place I call home more important? What is more important? Because if I just rent and I just pay rent, I don't have to do anything. I just have to I'll be like, so the light bulb's out. All right, no problem. We coming. Cool. Or I'd be like, oh, this, there's less responsibility so that I could put my time somewhere else and have less worries to worry about. And so, light bulbs. Yeah, so it did take me a long time. And the reason why I am still able to do is because I enjoy this. I love talking about it. I mean, I talked about it last night about 2 a.m. my time, and I'm still talking about it today. And this morning, I woke up and I was still kind of polishing up what I wanted to talk about today. Half improv, half reading. And like I said, it's taught me a lot. As I've learned a lot in the process, and I feel like there's still a lot of room to grow. There's still a lot of things that I don't know. And on top of that, there's going to be things that I forget along the way. And so I need reminding as much as I need educating. And so, yeah, so anyways, that's the show of today. And so let me go over a few of the summaries of what I was talking about earlier. So number one, first slide was what my relationships have taught me. Was acting needy and insecure got me nowhere. And that I have to vet properly. I had to vet my dating prospects properly and, have better judgments on people. So learn to be competent so that I could be confident. I realized that everything I can control was my choice. Growth was ultimately up to me. Life has changed. Growth is optional. So you can either become bitter or you can become better. What is your choice? Learn that it was possible to become a better communicator. I just thought, hey, this is me. Like, this is who I am. I decided that this is not my, I'm not going to use this as a crutch. That's not the story that I'm going to tell myself, that I can't learn how to be a better communicator. Your relationship helps you with self-acceptance, right? Humans have a tendency to never invest more than what they can afford to lose. And you can't give what you don't have. So it takes time and patience to be vulnerable enough to open up your heart to basically give love another chance and let someone in. And to know that you will be okay and you will be strong enough to be okay if they ever violate that, or if they ever violate your trust or violate your love or whatever it is. And whatever you believe in, what are your core values? Patience and understanding. So the most romantic phrase in a relationship is that I understand. And it's not just by saying I understand. It's, all right, Greg, take it easy. Thank you for stopping by. But it's really, truly, genuinely understanding what that person's saying. It's like, I understand. So what you're telling me is whenever I do this, it makes you feel like that. Is that right? And I think that's really important in a relationship, is to both step back. For you to both, if you're in this heated argument, you want to both step back and then start talking to each other. And if you guys can't agree with each other, then it's not going to work. But what you want to do is, if you're in this heated argument and you want to understand each other, what you're going to do is, she's going to talk first. Or he's going to talk. It doesn't matter. Let the lady go first. She's going to talk first, and you're going to listen. And as you're listening to her, she's going to be like, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, so from what I'm hearing, what you're telling me or what you're saying is blah, 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 blah. And when you tell me that and I do this, it makes you feel like this. Is that correct? And the whole idea of that is that she has to agree with what you just said. She has to agree. And if she does not agree with that, it means that you did not understand her and you didn't listen to her. And then she got to do it again. And until you understand. And so you got to be patient and understanding, which is my last slide, right? Patience and understanding. And so, and then it goes his turn. And so he has to do this. So he gets to give his idea. Because at the same time, you're trying to live you're trying to live with each other and understand each other. So you have to have patience. You have to have understanding. And I feel like whenever people get mad and upset, they don't listen to each other anymore. Everything kind of goes out the window. And so, like I said, the most romantic phrase you could say in a relationship is that I understand. You also need to learn how to navigate through relationships too, right? So masculine and feminine energy. And with that being said, that is the end of the show. I really appreciate your time again, as always. I do this YouTube Lives every Saturday at 12 p.m. Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. If you guys do find this video content of value, share it with your friends. There's always going to be somebody that might be going through a hard time. Or if they're not, they can still learn from it. But that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next live, and thank you for all your time. All right, peace.